Welcome back to a special edition of the Kudlow Report, as the House just voted in by a significant margin to pass the debt ceiling increase bill. Now we continue our fast-breaking coverage. I had a chance to sit down earlier, just a few moments ago, with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. He is one of the key players in this whole grand compromise deal. And I began by asking Senator McConnell, if the Treasury runs out of borrowing authority this week, will the debt bill help them begin covering right away? Here's what he told me.
Yeah, we'll help them this week. The president actually makes the request in September, but it'll cover the amount from now until September. This bill itself doesn't raise the debt ceiling, but the passage of this bill will make it clear that the president will be able to get the debt ceiling raised. We, in fact, give him an advance. He will make the request in September. And then later in the year, after this very powerful joint committee that we're setting up in this legislation reports, before Thanksgiving, entitlement reform, whatever savings they produce, he will make another request on a dollar-for-dollar basis for a debt ceiling up to that amount.
I want to come back to this super committee, which is an awesome construct, but I just want to come back. If the Treasury needs $400 or $500 billion in the next week or two, or for the month of August, will you give it to them by raising the debt ceiling?
This legislation will allow them to do what they need to do and make it clear that the U.S. government's not going to default for the first time in 235 years.
All right, thank you. Let me go back now to your super committee. First of all, are you satisfied with the enforcement? Are you satisfied that this thing can actually work for $1.5 trillion? So many people are skeptical.
Well, they shouldn't be. We've never given this kind of authority to a joint committee of Congress, certainly not in modern times. It's going to have what we call an expedited procedure. If people are looking for an example, the base closing legislation, where a proposal was crafted, it went to the Senate and the House for an up or down vote without amendment. Looking for another example, trade agreements, they go to the House and Senate for an up or down a vote without amendment. That report from the Joint Committee by Thanksgiving will be voted on up or down by the House and the Senate before Christmas. You could have, and we anticipate having, major entitlement reform. By the way, we couldn't get that in negotiations with the president. With the president, the price for major entitlement reform was big taxes. We can get entitlement reform out of this joint committee, and pass it, put it on his desk, and at that point I think he'll sign it.
What about the tax piece of this? I know there are no new taxes in the deal, but you're reading commentary today saying, look, if the committee doesn't report out in the November deadline for the $1.5 trillion, I think, then they're going to have their own automatic penalty cuts across the board. Half of that could be defense. They've already suffered $350 billion from the first phase. It could be $700 billion. How is that going to work? It would decimate our defense establishment.
Well, the point is to make sure it doesn't happen.
Does that leave tax revenues then as the alternative?
No, there are no taxes in the trigger. There are no taxes anywhere in this bill. The trigger we're talking about is the question you asked: what happens if the Joint Committee gridlocks and doesn't report? There is a very nasty, what we call sequester, across the government that is so nasty that we think it will provide additional incentive for the Joint Committee not to lock up and fail to make an important report.
The tax piece doesn't qualify at that point.
There's no taxes in the sequester. The consequences of the committee failing does not generate a tax increase.
Is it possible that the appointed ones could have a tax reform package?
Absolutely.
I mean, lower rates, broader based, eliminating deductions.
It is anticipated that the Joint Committee will look at both entitlement reform and tax reform. Everybody, you've talked about it, I've talked about it, the president has talked about it. Our corporate tax rate in particular is way too high. So this joint committee will look at tax reform as well. We hope to get the rates down for both individuals and corporations, take a lot of the preferences out of the code, flatten it out. It has the opportunity to do that, as well as the entitlement reform. This is a very powerful joint committee. This is not another commission, Larry. This is designed to work, not to fail.
Have you mentioned yet publicly who you'll appoint? You get 3 appointees to this commission, is that right?
I'm certainly not going to do that in advance of the vote.
All right.
Do we have time for me to mention one other thing?
We have all the time in the world.
What we have done, Larry, also is set a new template. In the future, any president, this one or another one, when they request us to raise the debt ceiling, it will not be clean anymore. this is just the first step. We anticipate will take us into 2013. Whoever the new president is probably going to be asking us to raise the debt ceiling again. Then we'll go through this process again and see what we can continue to achieve in connection with these debt ceiling requests of presidents to get our financial house in order.
So behind this major fiscal change, is there a political tidal wave? Is that really the message here? No spending, all spending cuts, no tax hikes to finally deal with our debt and our spending and our deficit. Is that political sea change?
Yeah, I mean, I think clearly the Tea Party movement helped us change the House and change the Senate. We're not going to be doing what we did the last Congress, which is increase the debt 35%, increase the spending 24%. Those days are over. As long as the American people will stay with us, we're going to continue to move in the direction of getting the financial house of the United States in order. It's obviously going to take more than this first effort, but we'll be ready to tackle it again in 2013.
All right, Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican leader, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Larry.
All right, very important remarks by Senator Mitch McConnell. A new template, a new game in town. All debt bills henceforth are going to be about spending restraints and cutting the debt. Coming up, we're going to talk about those very